Our true self doesn't have a spiritual awakening. How can it? But I'm not gonna get off in that and just there's no spiritual awakening. I'm gonna explain also about spiritual awakening. But I'm just saying, if you really break it down, you do the inner looking. It's like, who's having the spiritual awakening, right? Spiritual awakening is another sensation. It's a great sensation. It's a necessary sensation. It's the best sensation, I would say. But it's not a one and you're done type thing, at least for, 99.9%. Maybe Ramana Maharshi and Eckhart Tolle, people like that. But even that, if you trace back, if you look at their previous lives, they had already cultivated these spiritual sanskaras and tendencies and put the practice into where then at the perfect time, grace determines that. They just blew, something exploded because it was the right time. That's another good point. You see, this is spontaneous. You don't know when or how this is going to happen. You can't use the mind to cultivate a spiritual awakening, make it happen. There's videos, 6 steps to figure out how to have a spiritual awakening. That's just nonsense. That's clickbait. Even if somebody really thinks that, then they haven't had a spiritual awakening. And don't make videos showing your spiritual awakening. Like, oh, I feel it coming on. Hey, let me push play. Oh, yeah, don't, please. I mean, you can if you want, but if there's an authentic spiritual awakening, you just don't, there's not an inner feeling to do that. It's a private thing. It's like it's like you and God having sex, basically. So it's like, do you want to, if you're with your girlfriend and you want to have sex and show it online or something, it may be a little out there with the illustration, but some of you can get what I'm pointing at. There's certain intimate experiences we have that we don't want to just show the whole world. At the same time, there's exceptions. It's all good, I'm not really a proponent of anything, even if it sounds like I am. I'm a proponent of authenticity and truth. My first spiritual awakening was when I was 12 years old. And it happened like getting struck by lightning. I loved everybody and everything. I couldn't say profanity. I would just say the word like damn. And I would feel bad. Like the vibration of that word, I was in such a higher state, the vibration hurt. My nervous system was so sensitive. I couldn't take it. And I would experiment because I was young. I was like, damn, ow, shit, ow. It was a trip. And I loved everybody, even my family. and so-called bad people. I wanted to go up to them and tell them on the street, like, oh, I love you. Don't you, can you, like, I love you. And it finally hit me. The mind and ego came back in at night. This experience lasted a few hours. And the mind's like, bro, you'll never be the same now. You can't even, how are you going to go to school? How are you going to hang out? How are you going to do your cool character at school and rap and try to fight people? And you can't do that anymore. Like, you're not going to be cool. You're just going to be some square. How are you just going to love everybody, And that caused a panic attack because my desires for the world experience were still too strong. I couldn't survive the blast from this spiritual awakening. But it was a good boon. It was totally grace that gave me that. That's my whole point for this example. I wasn't doing any spiritual practice or preserving my semen or doing anything at that time. It was just, So we don't know how that's going to happen. And then I've had those experiences again after. That's what I mean. It's not like God strikes you and then okay, now I'm going to make videos and tell everybody I'm awake. It's when the more we're accustomed to, you can say, this inner peace, which is a fragrance that comes when there's some awakening, because the mind and ego is like not there, or it's very quiet or subdued, so then there's some peace that comes. The more that that's experienced and natural, the less of a big deal it is. See, when there's a contrast, when we're totally suffering our mind and ego and everything, and then all of a sudden God gives us a boon of peace and a kind of ego dissolution, then it's like, it's huge. And then we imagine, because it's so huge, our experience of it, our sensation, that we go up and we think that we somehow are higher than somebody else. And we're like, bro, I'm going to teach you how to have this, you know. You got to catch the ego out. If there's still an I that's saying it has a spiritual awakening and wants to broadcast the spiritual awakening, if there's too much identity in this one that had a spiritual awakening, check that. You see, you got to check that, because that's going to be an obstruction for this fusion with our, you can say, human ego dual self. With it's going to affect the merging of that with our natural non-dual self, which is the whole point of these pointings and teachings. So you really got to do the introspection to see. The ego can pretend and mimic all the spiritual God experiences. This is why the game's not so easy that we're in, because the ego does a really good job. We can talk all the spiritual lingo, and our imagination, that's a trip, is strong enough to make people think they're having an experience they're not even having. I was on the beach in Gokarna in India, and this guy, he would be dancing on the beach, and just very foo-foo-y, you know. Underneath that was like, please look how spiritual I am. I'm ecstatic. I'm in bliss. Because you can feel the vibration of that. It's not authentic. So that's the thing, though. The imagination can actually make you think you're having an experience you're not having, and then those who are also in their imagination, they can buy into that. But someone who's done the subtle introspection, you're aware of yourself on a subtle level, and you're used to catching your ego out, you discern via vibration. And once you do that enough in your own self, it's the same in everybody else. You can just tell what's authentic, what's not, and that's that. So it can be a real trap, man, for the mind. Another non-dual trap to think that to focus too much on this spiritual awakening. That will happen when it's supposed to happen in God's time, and then there's the whole management of it after, because the ego doesn't get obliterated. Rare cases, but even then, still a provisional ego remains. Otherwise, you just dematerialize. So there still needs to be some vigilance. And don't say, oh, that's happening automatically and I don't even know what's happening. I mean, you can say it if you want. It's cool. I think it's funny. But the game don't stop, because it would suck if the game stopped. We're here to experience life. This friction of duality is what gives us we couldn't appreciate the spiritual awakening otherwise. You see? So it's all good. God knows what he's doing. It's ultimate movie director, producer, actor, screenwriter, everything. And then he's experiencing his play through all these bodies. It's like there's the cosmic, universal one consciousness, and then it localizes itself in all these forms so it can enjoy its creation. What a trip. Yeah, okay.